to a couple of Rad Techs podcasts. I am your host as always, and we're doing another live. The last live was so successful. I just had to come back and do another one. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope it's going well. I'm trying to watch it as I am doing it so that way I make sure that I am bringing you all content that you actually enjoy. So if you see me looking over to the right, it's because I'm just making sure that this content is actually going live here. And if you guys have any questions, you know where to go. Let's get into it. I had a comment from a viewer that asked, can you talk more about local contracting versus travel contracting? Of course I can. So I'm going to get right into it. And we are going to get this party started. I'm watching the chat, so make sure you all drop some comments in the chat. I want to be able to answer them and be able to help you all, really navigate this profession. So the sound is good. I got a thumbs up from my team. I've got my little handy notebook here, my tablet, because I want to refer back to my notes so I get this right. Again, let me know what comments you all have in the comment section. And if you're watching this later, be sure to ask me questions. I've been a radiologic technologist for 22 years. I have my degree in radiologic sciences from Emory University School of Medicine. A lot of people get that confused. I did not go to medical school, but schools of medicine are very popular for graduating not just doctors, MDs, DOs. They're very popular because they are schools of medicine. Medicine incorporates a lot of different professions, and some people just don't know that, even people in the medical field. So I am here to tell you I do have a degree. No, it's not hanging up on my wall because I just never got it hung. I don't know why, but wherever you went to school for radiologic technology, I want you to drop it in the comments. Let me know, be proud of it, and know that you have a really great profession. We are the third largest profession in the nation. So Student Tech here dropping a like. Thank you so much, Mr. Amsterdam. I love it. Thank you. Let us know how long you've been in radiology school, how much longer you have, and are you interested in traveling? Because for me, when I got out of radiology school back in 2002, I knew nothing when I went into it about travel work. I just knew they took x-rays of people's body. It looked really interesting when I shadowed, and I was going to do it. I heard nothing but positive from my college counselors about the program because I started in respiratory and it just wasn't for me. I don't like snot. I don't like mucus. And there's no way you can do that profession and like any of those things because you're cleaning out trachs. You're dealing with the respiratory system. And a lot of treatments, breathing treatments, it was just yucky. It's a lot of work to keep people breathing. It's a lot of reasons people struggle to breathe. And I feel like the shadowing was an amazing thing for me. So when I went to school, I started working with a lot of technologists who were travelers. Back then, a lot of the hospitals were staffed by travel technologists, right? And I went to a teaching hospital. Emory University is a very large teaching hospital. It works in conjunction with Grady Hospital, which is a trauma burn center. Yes. Their doctors come to Emory to get training. Emory doctors go to Grady to get training. They feed into each other and are training their doctors and medical professionals together. The Veterans Hospital, also, their doctors come over and are trained at Emory as well. Those doctors circle, Morehouse doctors, they circle. Everybody rotates through those hospitals. Emory is one of them because it is a teaching hospital. So they have a lot of procedures going on, and they were always short technologists. So what happened? The technologists, they had to get in travelers. And I would meet these men and women, and they just seemed like they were so happy being travelers. And I thought, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a traveler, and I'll be able to work here 13 weeks, here 8 weeks, here 6 weeks, here 24 weeks, however I want to. And then I'm off for a couple of months. I didn't understand how that actually went. So we've got a comment. Okay, so Mr. Amsterdam, your graduation schedule for summer of 2025? Oh my goodness, I know you're excited. Everyone says you need 2 years of experience. What's your take on that? So when it comes to being a traveler, and I'm going to get to my story, but I want to answer these questions as it comes in. When it comes to being a traveler, I do think you need at a minimum 1 year if you are a really good student or a really good technologist and you did really well as a student and your first year you were pretty independent and you've seen a lot of things as a 1 year to go into traveling. 2 years at a minimum, honestly, will set you up properly. I don't believe in setting anyone up for failure because when you go to travel jobs, the people you're going to work with are not always welcoming. They are not happy you're there, at least in my experience. Most places I went, people were not like, let me show you the ropes. Let me help you. No, they were not happy that the management or administration brought in someone to do their same job at such higher pay. And they resent it a lot of times. So you got to know how to do what you got to do because you get very, and sometimes there's no staff there. I remember working at a job where everybody walked off the job and erased all the protocols, couldn't find any coil. Like, I never seen anything in a hospital like that before. So you don't know what situation you're coming into. So if you're an MRI tech or a technologist, CT technologist, and you don't know how to set up protocols and you go to a travel assignment, wow, you're not able to actually do the work because the protocols have been erased. And you don't know how to set up protocols. So what can you do? So that's really, or you don't know how to operate the machinery. If the facility has GE and you only know Siemens, that is a big jump. Each manufacturer is different. So I do feel like you need 2 years of experience, not just at one place, but experience to deal with certain type of patient populations and also to deal with certain types of machinery that you're going to have to deal with as a technologist. Every contrast does not respond the same way. So if you're not used to using EOVist, you don't even know what EOVist is, you've never seen it, you don't know what a prostate exam is, you've never done that for MRI, it's going to be really hard for you because those are general exams that you do. So that's what I would say. Get your experience, know exactly what you're going into, and 2 years is going to do that for you. And it's going to give you the confidence. That's what I feel like 2 years does for you. The more years you have working in a facility where you're comfortable, you have people that help you, you gain the confidence to now go into a travel assignment where you don't really have that a lot of times. So now you can go in there and say, I don't care if they don't like me. I'm getting my coins. I'm going to only be here for 13 weeks or whatever, however many weeks. And I'm out after that. Do my job, what I know how to do. Ignore all the factors around me. When you have years under you, you go in with that kind of confidence because you don't need anybody else. You can do your job. You don't need to ask anybody questions. And you've gotten a network. I'm going to talk about this in this video. You've gotten a network of people that, hey, if you're stuck in a travel assignment, I've worked long enough, I can pick up the phone and call my friend Karen and say, hey, how do you do X, Y, Z? And she says, go to the scanner, press that button, do this, that. Thank you. When you're new in the game, you don't have those resources. So hopefully that helps. So I'm thinking of getting an internship before graduation to acclimate, work experience before I graduate so I can be ahead of the game. Smart. That what he's talking about is while you are a student, you can work as a technologist. They call them student technologist internships. You get paid to work as a radiologic technologist as a student. Yeah, I did it my second year. And you can't use them as competencies on any of your exams. But as Mr. Amsterdam said, this gives you the confidence. This gives you that out of school work where you're in there by yourself. You've comped on. Of course, you can't do things you haven't comped on or shown competency on during school. But for the most part, when you're a second year, you've done mostly everything. So they can let you in the room and do chest x-rays. They can let you in the room and you're welcome. You can go in the room and do certain orthopedic exams. And in the evening shifts, that's what I would work as a student. After I finished school, my clinicals or finished school, I would go to the hospital. Usually that I worked at, Emory had several hospitals. So I had a job working second shift at the main hospital because they already had a problem staffing second shift. So the manager hired me as a second shift student technologist, and they knew what exams to give me. Of course, I didn't get a whole trauma bay of exams. I didn't even go into traumas by myself, but I would get the exams like orthopedic. People fell off at a construction site or got a nail through their knee when they were working at a construction site or through their foot or a diabetic foot. I need to take a x-ray to look for the inflammation or the infection in a toe and basic things like that. Shoulders, wrist, hands. Kids fell off their bike. They come to the ER. I do those x-rays. Those kind of things like that. It gives you confidence because now you got to think through it on your own. You're not in class with other students standing there helping you. It's amazing. It's so good. So thank you for those comments, Mr. Amsterdam. And I wish you the best. Let us know when you graduate and be sure to go ahead and plan something really nice for yourself when you graduate. I think you should celebrate. For me, I got married my second year in school. So I went on my anniversary during my summer break, and that was my graduation present. So when I went back to school, I worked. And after I finished my second year, I was working. And but do something to celebrate those 2 years that you have worked hard and now you have passed your ARRT. You are a registered radiologic technologist, and get that experience. Get your PRN in addition to your full-time job when you graduate. And get it at a totally different hospital than what you work at. Do something. Your PRN job should challenge you and be different than where you work. If your job that you work at full-time challenges you, get a PRN that's a little soft life. That's a little more relaxing, maybe outpatient, that kind of thing like that. So that way you got both worlds. You need to have both worlds. You need to know what it's like to be in the thick of things and figuring it out. And you need to be in the outpatient place where you're kind of alone. It's not rush. You got time to think things through a little more. Those are two different brain connections you got to use and exercise. So hopefully that helps. So how do you start local radiology contracts? This is a step-by-step, guys, because we talk a lot about travel, like traveling. I've done travel contracts. I first started actually in local contracting before I did out-of-state contracting. And it's important to talk about that because I think sometimes we forget that you can travel right in your own state or miles right around you. All you have to do is be 52 miles away from your home, your registered home that the government says you live in, the address you use probably for your tax returns, that kind of stuff like that. The place you call home, 52 miles away from there is all you have to be to really be considered a contractor and get those per diems that companies are offering. 52 miles. That's it. Most of us think we have to be hundreds of miles or all the way in California if you're on the East Coast to do a travel assignment. Now, California does have the most travel jobs out there, I will say. I keep a California license. I did let my California license lapse during the pandemic because that was 3-4 years I wasn't going anywhere. I was not doing any travel work during that time. But I'm going to tell you, I keep a couple West Coast states, but right now I just have California, but I'll probably add Washington onto that because Washington and California, to me, now someone else may disagree, but to me, they have the better paying and the more jobs. They just have more jobs out there. So if you're planning, look for the states. I used to have a lot more licenses. When I used to travel a lot, I had a lot more licenses. I think I've had up to 7 radiology state licenses. Because things are really hot. That's the thing. You have to be flexible when you're a contractor or a traveler. When I was a student in school, everybody, the whole VA in Atlanta was staffed by travelers. And then when I graduated, that went away. It wasn't that many travelers. They got rid of the contracts. They hired more full-time people. And then later on, it happened again. So there are ebbs and waves throughout, every industry, but that's how healthcare is sometimes. So you got to kind of just set yourself up for what do I want to do when the opportunity comes? So if you're thinking about traveling, you're a radiology student, think about local and far away. But when you think about local, realize you only have to be 52 miles away to get the per diem. You don't even have to be 52 miles away if you don't care about the per diem. Your rate's going to be a little low. You're not going to get those incentives that are tax benefits. Now, they might give you a food allowance, but it's not going to be a per diem like tax-wise. I'm not a CPA, so I'm not giving any advice, but I'm just explaining to you the difference. When you're under 52 miles, those per diems tax-wise don't benefit you. So if the company gives it to you, that's it. So are you a radiologic technologist wondering how to land local contracts without needing to travel across the country? That is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to dive into some secure opportunities, not kind of fly by night things, but secure things that have worked for me, that I've done, how I started doing local, and why I still do local. I don't mind cross country, or I don't care working in a hospital. I know what I know, and I know what I can do and what I can't do. And I know what I'm willing to learn. And I think if you have that outlook, you'll have no problem getting work in this field. I don't think you have a problem anyway, but when you just get good at whatever it is you're doing and have confidence that you're able to learn and learn fast, you won't have a problem getting jobs and keeping contracts long term. That's the thing. When you work at a contract, you want to, not a lot of turnover unless the place is bad, but you want to have a contract where they say, we don't want her or him to go anywhere. Let's renew them. And they do not stop at saying, we'll pay you what you want. That's the kind of contracts you want, especially if you're local. So some opportunities that are close to home, how to build your career locally. Because everybody does not have the opportunity to go to California from the East Coast or even go to Texas for a period of time. I mean, everybody just doesn't have that opportunity. So if you don't, this is how you need to do it. It's a suggestion, of course, but this is some of the things that I did. So just a brief personal history about how, you may get started working local contracts. And so we're going to talk about, we're going to set some expectations that this is not a one size fits all kind of thing. It doesn't work for everyone. And how you're going to know what steps to take, how to network to negotiate. That is very important when it comes to local or over, cross country contracts, and how to secure the right area. I talked a little bit about that 52 miles, understanding that. So if you're doing local, what I had to do was, first of all, and this may kind of go out of order for you, but again, it goes to working in your field and networking with people, getting to know people. Back when I started, there were less larger corporations. You had like cross country travel. They changed names. They were called something else before. Several of these companies now have been gobbled up by other ones. They used to be called other things. And there were only like 3 or 4. And they were mainly the main ones, like cross country. And there was a couple others, I forget. Med something, but they got bought out by somebody now. But they had the main contracts. But then scattered about locally, you had technologists like myself who had their own staffing companies. Yes, there once was a time that technologists actually owned their own staffing companies and had large contracts. There was one guy, I never worked for him because he said he doesn't pay women that. Yeah, so I never worked for him because he wasn't going to pay me pennies while he paid my male friends a lot more. It just wasn't happening. I didn't want to travel that bad. I'll work at my PRN job versus go work at a facility for him and make him money when he doesn't feel I'm valuable. That's something you want to make sure when you're taking jobs. Value yourself. Don't just be wanting to say you've been on a travel job. There are plenty of travel jobs out there. There's not one business or company in the game that has a monopoly on it. If there's one out there, you can find another one. So hold to what you feel reasonably that you're worth. And if you know for sure that you're worth that and someone tells you they're not going to pay you because you're a woman, yeah. Anyway, off my soapbox. But yes, so what I say is, my light went off. I need to turn my light back on. So what I would encourage you is making sure that you find a company. So there were smaller technologists who had larger companies that they worked with. Major hospitals. One had a VA contract. One had a really, really big hospital that was brand new in the area's contract. And they needed staff that they could depend on who would come to work. And some had imaging centers as their contracts, larger imaging centers that had different offices. And those imaging centers were open to like 11 o'clock at night sometimes. So they were open from 6 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, 6 days a week, every day but Sunday. It's hard to staff places like that. And if you don't have the staff, they look for a staffing agency. So a lot of the smaller imaging centers could not afford the larger companies. So what they did was use the technologists who own their own staffing companies. Well, there's a lot to go into owning your own staffing company. Just I don't want anybody to think that anybody can own their own staffing company, because there are insurances that you have to have because you will get sued and things happen. Extravasations, whatever technologist works under you, if a medical issue happens, your company's responsible. It's your company that's going to get sued, along with that technologist probably, but your company. And if that technologist does not have their own insurance or is not properly covered by your insurance, it will bankrupt you. So I am not an advocate of ever creating a platform where I tell technologists, go out and contract yourself out. You get a business plan, talk to responsible people if that's what you're going to do. But the way you start locally contracting is look for other people, maybe smaller companies that have a staffing company. And that way you kind of get your feet wet without having to say, I'm going to pick up and move away from my whole family and move across country, unless that's something you want to do. You want to kind of stay local, or you have kids that need to be back and forth to school, or you're married and your mate doesn't really want you to be gone for 13 weeks and only come home on the weekends if you can get home on the weekends. Yeah. So there are reasons why people want to do local contract. And when you do that, make sure that you find a company that maybe offers 4 day a week or 3 day a week. That's all you want locally. Or if it's 5 days a week, be very clear what you want to do. And also ask them how long are their contracts. Sometimes it may be for holiday coverage. I just got a call from a company that wanted to subcontract me to work for 2 days in another state. I don't have that state's license because I don't get a lot of jobs from that state. But 2 days of 2 12-hour shifts. It was somebody that needed off for Thanksgiving and a day after Thanksgiving. The facility didn't want to close. That's not bad at all. I mean, imagine if you worked 2 days and you made $2,000. That's $1,000 a day or $800 a day. And then you got your work for the next week, and that was a 4 day week. Those are things that you can look at. Now, remember, you don't get insurance when you are local or traveler. You don't get insurance. So these are all things you have to weigh in. Most of the time, you still need to carry some kind of liability insurance. Just like when you were a student in school, you had the school covered you with liability insurance. So you still need to have coverage of those things. I always encourage you to have short-term disability. If you don't get that through the company, you can have short-term disability. Those are all ways that I would really encourage you to really set yourself up as a traveler. If you're going to travel locally across country, you are a business. You are not an employee anymore. You need to have short-term, long-term disability, even starting your own retirement plan, your own way to save, because you're making a lot more money. Put that money away because you don't have an employer taking it out and matching the 401k. You don't have an employer covering your short term. So when you go out on FMLA, you're covered. All of those things I think are important to talk about in this conversation of contracting. I'd love to know what you all think. And so what you want to do is research local facilities. Mainly, you want to research, if you're trying to find local facilities, you want to research for PRN jobs or per diem jobs, short-term jobs like that. So per diem, PRN, and you want to look for these jobs by maybe just if you're driving down the street. I know, like when I'm in Florida and I see all of these imaging centers, I'm like, wow, they've got like 4 imaging centers on every corner. But that's South Florida. When you come to, say, Texas is a huge state. They have a lot of imaging centers. California is a huge state and very populous. They have a lot of imaging centers. Could they possibly need PRN staff? That's a way to do local work, local contracting work. Depending on how far it is from your residence, you could get some type of tax break. But if not, it still gives you the flexibility to increase your income without having to go across country to work for a period of time. And you may just want to be vacation relief. You may just want to be 1 day a week somewhere that they can consistently, as a PRN or per diem, give you every Monday, every Friday, every Tuesday, every Thursday, something like that, that works for your schedule. The other thing is making sure that when you do find these places, you can just call the HR department and ask, are they hiring PRN or per diem? If you see it on their website, fill out an application. interview for it. That's people don't think about that as a local way to travel. Per diem is a really good way to travel. Nurses do it all the time. They've been doing it for years. We as radiology technologists can do it also. Per diem is really good, and it's similar to PRN, but it's a little different. So more of a little set hourly schedule. PRN is as needed. Per diem is as needed, but more on a set schedule, if that makes sense. You're kind of scheduled, so you know what days they're going to need you. PRN is like, hey, and then you can kind of get canceled a little more in PRN than you can per diem. I personally didn't get canceled a lot all the years I've worked PRN. I really didn't get canceled that much. I honestly say I was called more than not. People really needed coverage more so than they didn't need you. And a lot of full-timers wanted to take off. So it was like, hey, can she cover the holidays? Like, I didn't mind working the holidays. I didn't mind working the Saturdays because I wasn't working during the week for them. The weekends are pretty chill. I could work by myself, got everything done. That I could knock out 12 to 16 hours in one day versus 2 8-hour days during the week, during the day, dealing with the politics of the day. I worked Saturday, 16 hours. I'm done. 16 hours one day every week. I'm done. At a higher rate of pay, plus your differential. I mean, you can't beat that. Now, next I'm going to say you want to build your network. Remember I told you earlier, I worked for friends who had other technologists who had their own imaging companies. The first guy that I ever worked for, we were technologists together. One of my early CT jobs at a hospital, and I never knew he contracted he had his own contracted company out. He worked full time at this hospital, and I was full time at the hospital as well. Really nice guy, stayed himself. And one day he sent me a message and said, hey, I got a job at a hospital. They need some second shift coverage. I've worked with you before. You're a very solid worker. I come to work on time. I do my job. I stay out of the mess. And that's how he was. And he and I had never really talked like that. And one day he sent me that message. And it was after we had worked together one time. We really didn't talk. He didn't talk much. He didn't talk much. So I was really surprised when he called me. But then my husband and I went in for a CAT scan, and he actually did my CAT scan at another hospital. And we laughed and we all talked. Him and my husband sat back there and talked and laughed. And afterwards he said, I was talking to your husband to tell him get in school for radiology. He'll love it. And my husband is a tech now, but I thought I was the one that convinced him. But I think he was just, really like, man, this is a good field because we have been talking about it. This is a really good field for you. And it was like what my husband needed to hear from another guy. He was just a really cool guy to work with, this guy was. And after that, he called me and I said, yeah. I was nervous. I was so nervous to take on this travel job, y'all. It was like, not that I never done CT before. I did it every day. I was good at it. I did IVs. I had emergency situations. I felt like I handled them well, but I felt like, wow, this is my friend's company. What if I screw up? It was just so scary. I did it, and I was so happy because in that one shift, I made some good money. I made some really good money. He was paying nothing what we're making now, but he paid me really way more than I was making at the hospital. Way more than I was working at the hospital. And the work wasn't even hard. I don't know why I thought being a traveler would be so much harder. It wasn't that hard. So it was the same thing I was doing every day. It was just I didn't really know the person's the facility's paperwork kind of situation because I didn't get any training. I just went in there one night. There was no tech. The other tech that was leaving just showed me how to log in. There was just a generic login and where the contrast was, and here's the phone, and here you go. And that was it. And patients were waiting on me. And I was busy until 10:30 that night. And I filled in a few more times. It was really cool. I enjoyed that as getting my feet wet in travel work. That was a good way to start as a newbie in travel radiology. Instead of my first one being cross country, I think I would have really freaked out then. But that's where networking comes in if you want to do local traveling. A lot of times your local contracts are people right there with you. You just don't know. There are still technologists that own their own contracting companies out there. You just usually don't know who they are unless you're networking with them. Ways to network are going to be go to LinkedIn, connect with them here. You can connect with me here, right here on this YouTube page, as well as LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. There are many ways to network with people. Joining your local associations, like your local associations, maybe the New York Society of Radiologic Technologists, if you're in New York, Ohio, California. Every state has a radiology society. Join it. And then joined the ASRT. I wasn't always a member. As a student, I was a member, and then I fell off the wagon, didn't really understand the benefit of being a part of the ASRT. If I had been a part of the ASRT, I feel like some of my journey would have been different because of the networking that is there if I would have taken advantage of it. But never too late. I joined a few years ago, and my networking and my outlook on my profession has been broadened. Because now I'm meeting people and I'm like, what? You're a nuclear physicist and you're a radiologic technologist? Like, we do that? Oh, you're a medical dosimetrist? Oh, wait, what? We do that too? And you guys make what kind of money? Oh, my goodness. And how do I go to school for that? I just learned so much. And my radiology podcast, a couple of RadTech's podcasts, has really done that and exposed me to even more people in the industry and the profession and possibilities for me in the profession. And it can do the same for you. So if you haven't joined an association, even as a student, you can join one of your associations, preferably the ASRT and your local chapter of your society. So whatever state you're in, look it up, ask your instructors, definitely join it. And also stay connected with your former colleagues. I'm going to tell you, I have been referred to so many jobs and referred my colleagues to jobs that they've gotten, they love. I was leaving one job as a manager and I was like, who? And the doctors are like, can you give us someone, please, that can do, be you and take, because I just go to work, do my job. Doctors didn't have to worry about anything in their CT department. And I remember this lady that helped me out when I was a new CT technologist. And at that contract job that I was telling you about, she was the one that first shift, she walked me through what I needed. And we kept each other's number. We always stayed in contact. She was always really nice. That was over 20 years ago. And about 2004 or 5, I was leaving that job, the management job, and I picked up the phone and I said, hey, there's a job over here. It's amazing. I really think you should look at it. And she was like, oh, you sure? And she was like, I was just really shocked that she made such an impression on me when I was a young technologist. Everybody else would just act like, oh, you don't matter. Would you, people could be really tolerant of you. And I was coming in as a traveler, and I wasn't like I didn't know anything. I just didn't know their system. She took the time before she left, and she called me later to see how it went. And a few other times I went back to do the contract job, she made sure I was okay. You okay? Did you have any trouble? And she told me, like, when this machine does this, do this. Call me if you need. Like, she was very willing to help. And she wasn't like, I'm only doing it just to be nice. She was genuinely trying to help. And years later, I hooked her up with the job she's still on to this day. Great benefits. She thanks me every day. She's like, girl, at first I was like, why is she leaving the job? Must be something wrong with it. No, I really wanted someone good to have this really good job. I was going in another direction, and this particular job would have kept me in CT. I knew I wanted to do more than CT. I didn't want to just be a CT technologist. I didn't want to just be a manager. I wanted to learn the profession of medical imaging. And I had to leave that really good job to do that. It was a very hard decision. But that connection that I made with my colleague those years before, because she was so helpful to me and I barely knew her, it turned out to be so beneficial for her. And years later, those doctors never forgot it. Never. To this day, my husband sees one of the doctors and he's like, how's your wife doing? She was one of our best CT managers. Oh, we just love her. Glad everything worked out for her and she's doing well. I'm telling you, people don't forget when you've been good to them, and it will work out for you later in your career. So always stay connected with your former colleagues. Always do right by people, because people, even though they might be students now, at one point they're going to be your manager or be a manager of somewhere you may want to work, somewhere you may want to become a vendor, or somewhere you may want to be a speaker for, or whatever it is that you're doing. They may be the person that holds the key to open that door for you. And either they'll remember positively or negatively. Not always. You can't make everybody happy. But if you genuinely were not nice to them, they're going to remember it, or not helpful. If you genuinely were nice and helpful to them, they will remember it. So that's what I say about networking, using networking to negotiate. Negotiating does not always mean money, y'all. It does not. When people always say, well, how much will I make? How much should I make? How much? Negotiation is not always about money. I just had a call from an HR department about a job that will help me learn a new skill. It necessarily doesn't pay more, but it's a skill that I've wanted to always add to my repertoire. And I negotiated, I haven't heard back, the schedule. I wasn't negotiating the money because I know it doesn't pay there's not going to be too much negotiation on the pay. But the negotiation for me was the schedule. And that's where you got to kind of figure out what negotiation is. Negotiate your network. When you're in situations, learn how, if I'm at the local level, how can I create a network that helps me in the future, and I can help it in the future. Notice when I gave you that example about my networking, it wasn't what I got. I told you an example of what I gave someone. And to this day, that person comes to my social media. They're always commenting, always sharing, always engaging. And I don't ask them to do it. But they gave to me at the beginning. I gave back to them. It's a give and take in relationships. It's always negotiating. That's negotiating in relationships. I mean, don't always say, well, my give was bigger. Says who? Use these opportunities. I got another question. I walked into one of the exam rooms and saw a service tech repairing the tube and Bucky, and showed interest. And the person said they need rad techs to fulfill these jobs. Yeah. We do work as engineers as well. I knew an MRI technologist. He's passed away now. He trained me. This guy could work on the machines. He would get in there with the engineers. And back in the day, we had to do certain things to our scanners, CT and MRI scanners back in the day, that you didn't always have engineers available. I mean, sometimes you didn't have them available. I remember, moving gradient things moving the trays out. The engineer would walk me through how to do it. These were on old MRI scanners. And that is a whole nother job opportunity. Engineers make so much money when they work on those machines. I mean, you should definitely look into that, because and not only just that, but it'll open up opportunities, because those engineers work very closely with companies that hire for clinical applications technologists. I did that for a period of time. Very lucrative. You travel a lot with it. But if you're an engineer, you work a lot of overtime as well on the machines, because you can't operate on the machines, work on the machines while patients are being done, unless the machine is totally down. So these are opportunities like Mr. Amsterdam just showed. He took the time to show interest in the engineers. Yeah, our degree is not in it, but a lot of those technologists or technicians, they don't per se have engineering degrees, but they know the machinery. Then they're biomed techs. We can learn. We've worked on a machine that done minimal things to get them going. You can do that, and the connections you make with these engineers can open up connections in, say, Siemens or GE or Philips or, whatever other companies out there, Radiologic. And they could say, well, I worked with this tech over there. There's a job coming up in our company that's remote, and they need someone that's a technologist to do it. And, I worked with this really nice technologist over there. You don't know who these engineers know. Really nice technologists over there. And I'm telling you, they can they might be interested. You may want to contact them. Hiring manager contacts you, Mr. Amsterdam, and boom, you got a job doing something you didn't think that would even, but that's where networking, negotiating a network really helps. Used to work in IT back in the day, so I found this interesting. Have you ever thought about informatics? Informatics is the IT portion. It's not just PACS, but it is really like the information technology part of it. Informatics is really good. I have a podcast interviewing a young lady that is Penn State's top imaging informatics professional, and she is just fantastic. You may want to check that out because the text said they offer full paid on-job apprenticeships. Yes, informatics is very, very high. I'm thinking about getting my master's in informatics. I'm just not sure because I want to get my master's in something that is going to be in the direction. That's my thing. I have always taken classes and been in school from the time I started college. I'm always going to keep a course going. But what I say is everything I've done, because I didn't get my bachelor's in radiologic sciences, because at that time when I went to Emory, the bachelor's was in an education track only. I knew I didn't want to be an educator, and I didn't want to limit my bachelor's to just an education. I wasn't sure what direction I was going, but I see you already have an IT background, Mr. Amsterdam. You may want to look into a master's program if you already have a bachelor's for informatics. I think you should really check it out. Go listen to my podcast and tell me what you think in the comments, because it was a really highly requested podcast. It was really good. Glad to be here. Paul says I'm finishing up prerequisites, and we'll hopefully go into the radiology program in 2026. Oh, nice. That is really good. So the prerequisites, in order to get into colleges, you have to take prerequisites for whatever you're going to get your degree in. And then you can apply to get into whatever program. So for radiology, there are certain history, math, Englishes, sciences that you have to get if you already don't have a degree or don't have those fulfilled or they're over a certain amount of time. Like I was thinking about going back to school for medical dosimetry. Still am, but I don't think I am. I'm not sure yet. Because I got to see myself doing it. I just don't want the credentials. I want to be able to do it. But you have to have chemistry and some other stuff. So mine are too old. I've been out of school for 20 years. So mine are too old, so I would have to take them over. But that is exciting. Mr. Amsterdam is graduating summer of 2025, and Paul is finishing up his prerequisites. And you are going to be in the Radiologic Technology program. We're going to take the hopefully out. 2026, you are going to be in, and you're going to come back to this channel because I'm still going to be here. We're saying we are. We're not saying possibly, we may, we are. Because you guys are doing the work of getting those prerequisites done and making sure that you have a foundation. Because I feel like prerequisites, they go ahead and pull out the cobwebs out of your brain and move things and get you in that thinking. Because once you hit that radiology program, and Mr. Amsterdam can probably attest to this, once you hit that radiology program, it is nonstop. Your brain is like, test this day, study this day, study, test, class, clinicals. It is like rapid fire for 2 years, y'all. And it's not hard, but the program is not hard, I don't think, but it is a lot. It is a lot. And if you're working, some people work. I didn't work when I was in school, not that first year, the second year I did, but it's a lot to keep up with. I just felt like sometimes I was just going to not make it. I was like, I don't think I'm going to do it. So we'll do. I've been watching your videos and shorts before I started school. Oh, good. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, that podcast on informatics, I learned a lot. I did not know. I knew PACS when it came out. When I was in school, they started PACS, and it was pretty new. And then informatics came from that. Nursing has had informatics, but not imaging. And for many years, they had nurses doing imaging informatics for the radiology department. And it's like, no, we know radiology. We should be doing our own IT or informatics side of it with the IT department. And so many departments started phasing out nurses from taking those positions because they don't know imaging, just like we don't know nursing, and we have imaging informatics. And this is the thing, you want to have that degree to really set you up for the CIIP exams that you're going to need to take and give you that experience. So you can command the money you deserve, and you can do the job without a lot of hiccups. And you can learn while you're on a job. So hopefully that's helped. Started with 23 students down to 11 and counting. What? Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. I think we started, that's really shocking. I've heard someone else come into my DMs and say that they started with like 40 students and they were down to like 10. I don't understand. Are people failing out, or are they saying they don't want to continue and just dropping out? That's really shocking, because when I was in school, we started with about, I'm going to say 25. And then we finished with all, but I think one girl dropped out or failed out. I can't remember. I think it was just like one person failed out. But then we picked up another girl the second year because she failed out the year before. So they let her back in to our second year. So she filled in that spot. I think that was it. Wow, that is really interesting. I did not know that. So now I'm going to talk thirdly about perfect your resume and your portfolio. Make sure when you talk about resumes, I'm not here to talk about how to write a resume. I probably need help on that too. But I'm not a great resume writer, but I know what to put on my resume to make it stand out. Make sure you highlight your certifications, your specialties, and this is going to help with flexibility for short-term jobs. We're talking about local contracting here versus cross-country traveling. You want to make sure you have references from previous roles. Companies are going to ask for that regardless if you're full-time job hunting or local contracting. But these hospitals that they're going to try to place you in, they want to know, where did you work? Who did you work for? Let's get a reference. Let's see what kind of experience you have. Do you have the certifications to back up what this job that we need fulfilled on a short period of time? We need somebody that's got the certifications and the experience. So make sure you have really good references and have the ARRT certification. You cannot work in the field and really command money as a medical imaging professional when it comes to radiology without ARRT. It is the gold standard. They have over 11 modalities. It is the gold standard. There are other special licensures companies out there, but ARRT has been around for a long time, and they are the gold standard. Greetings. Glad I finally caught it live, Louis Gordon. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I am going to do this once a week. I'm going to pick a day that I can consistently go live and do a premiere. I'm going to actually just set that up today and go ahead and schedule out all my lives and put them inside of the premiere. So you'll start seeing premiere going live on this day, because these conversations are necessary. I see you guys really, really like the lives better. And I think I can have a better conversation live. I feel less rehearsed. I have my notes, but I don't feel like I'm tied to them. They hear the luxuries of traveling and making bank, but don't realize how much studying is involved. Yeah, I literally study every day and stay afloat. Yes. Oh my goodness, Mr. Amsterdam. I'm telling you, I used to make my own flashcards, and I used to dream about KVP, MA, and I mean, x-rays of chest. Like, those are my dreams at night. Like, who dreams about x-ray? I would stay up sometimes like, I got a test tomorrow. It was a lot. I had to take ginkgo biloba and some herbs to just calm down, because I was always it's very stressful. I was high strung. My cortisone levels were probably through the roof during those 2 years, but it's well worth it. Those 2 years did go by very fast, and they have paid off. I look at where I was. I had a good job. I was driving trucks, making good money, good company, and I probably would have been moved up in management, doing other things with FedEx. But that's not what I would have wanted to do. The flexibility that I have with this job of being in medical imaging, I can't compare it to nothing. I'm telling you. I don't really have anyone like the nursing industry does content-wise. We don't really have. Yeah. So that's why I get on social media, is Actually, I was on social media before, just a little, for like a year. My husband was like, you should talk about radiology. There's nobody out there that's really talking to the technologists, to the students. And if you guys notice, I try to do content. I mean, nobody wants to see me get ready. I don't want to see myself get ready. I don't really do things like that to where y'all want to watch me make a smoothie. I'm sorry. I don't even want to watch myself make a smoothie. And when I make it, I'm ready to eat it. But, I understand the behind the scenes and things like that. But my purpose in making radiology content is to bring people something that can really service them. And I know what it was like when I was going to school for it. I had no clue what I was going to school for. Absolutely had no clue, but I knew it was a good idea. Don't ask me why I knew, but I knew it was a good idea. And I'm very happy I ignored other people. But being able to have social media out here and me be able to be on it with others as well and talk about ways to advance your career, not just monetarily, but monetarily as well. If I would have known about medical dosimetry, all I knew about was radiation therapy. That's all I could think about. And I was so focused on applying for radiation therapy school. I was so focused. I mean, like, I didn't pay attention to the CT department that really, really wanted me and was training me while I was in school. And they really were fighting for me to work for them. I totally ignored them. And interventional, they were fighting to come work for us. And I'm like, I really want radiation therapy. And radiation therapy, I applied twice. They were nope. And then I went to CT. Best decision ever. And I strategically try to create content that helps people be smart about their moves in the field. You go to school for radiologic technology, number one. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. I'm not going against it. I'm not saying that's the only way to work in our field, but I feel like that's the first thing you should do. Why? Because now every modality is open to you. Not one, not just two. Everything's open to you with just maybe a year of schooling, if that long. And when you go for the other primary pathways like MRI, nuclear medicine, radiation therapy, ultrasound, you can only do those things. Radiology, you can do them all. And if you strategically do it, you can get 22 years that I've been in the field. If I was strategic, I would have gotten more than 2 other registries. I would have gotten X-ray first, CT next. I would have done mammo, interventional, got certified in those 4. That's what, maybe, I'm going to say give 2 years in between each, 8 years. I've been doing this 22 years. I got a lot more years left just with 8 years of getting 4. And then MRI, that's 10 years. And then correct my math if I'm wrong, sorry. And then that's 10 years. I still got another 12 to go. And I've got 5 registries if I would have done them that way. I'm not saying that would have been the right way, but if I would have done them that way, that's 5. And then if I want to go for radiation therapy, that's another year of school. And then I could have gone for one more year of medical dosimetry. That's 7 registries in 14 years. Still got years left. Y'all, this is why I'm saying I hope that you guys follow my podcast, because in 2025, I'm coming with it in 2025. I'll do more solo podcasts in 2025, and I'm going to do more helping technologists to create a pathway. I've got a podcast coming up for those of you that are looking for local travel like this conversation. It's about PRN work, contract work, and how you can make your money work for you, because you're getting a lot more money at one time, and what to do with that money sometimes is elusive. And as PRN workers, we don't always have 401ks that we're a part of. We don't always have ways to save that extra income as a traveler when you get a per diem and you get a house allowance, but you decide to stay with your aunt who only charges you for groceries or says, keep your extra $300, $400 a month on food. Drive my car so you keep an extra $400 on a car allowance. That's an extra $800 you're keeping in addition to your salary, because aunt is so nice. And what do you do with that $800 tax-free money? That's where we have these conversations. So I have a podcast coming up this Thursday, actually this Friday, with the certified public accountant who is a CNN finance expert. You guys don't want to miss it. The trailer is already up on my podcast now. If you haven't heard it, the trailer is amazing. So let's finish up here. Approaching staffing agencies. If you want to specialize in healthcare contracts, you need to go through these staffing agencies. Some of them are really, really large, and some of them are really, really cheap. They're going to try to penny pinch you all the way down. I see contracts that are like $1,400 a week for a travel job. No way, Jose. You are not. Let me tell y'all now. Do not pick up and leave your state for $1,400 a week on a travel assignment, just because they say $1,200 is not taxable, because they're going to put it into your per diem. Find a recruiter that you can trust, and that's going to take you going through several of these contract and